Hi, this is Ed Nawatka for Publishing Perspectives. I'm here with Chad Post, Editor-in-Chief and founder of Open Letter Press at the University of Rochester, does literary translations. And so Chad, Book Expo this year, what are your thoughts and feelings? There seems to be a bit of concern out there about the health of the industry, and I'm curious how it's going to affect your time at the show in New York.
Yeah, I think this year is going to be particularly interesting because over the past year, a lot's happened with the economy, with publishing, but also with Book Expo. Like Book Expo Canada folded and completely collapsed, and so then we had Book Expo America, where all the publishers, booksellers, reviewers used to get together and exchange information. And I think the show is becoming, in a sense, almost like the way that it was constructed before, outmoded. Like the reasons for it are changing. Like there used to be a sense that booksellers would go there to find out about books that they wouldn't otherwise find out about. But that's not the case in today's globalized, internet-heavy world. You can find out about anything at anywhere and any time. All the reps come to all the different bookstores. There's not that need to see what's coming out to go there. So another aspect of it used to be that the booksellers could have these educational meetings, and they still do. They have an educational day, I think, today, Wednesday,
right,
and tomorrow and Thursday, and learn about how to do buying, how to displays, blah, blah. But now there's the Book Expo Winter Institute, where it's all about learning and all about that kind of exchange of information. So the need for a Book Expo for that aspect sort of fades away a bit too. And so this year there's a lot of presses that aren't taking out booths, like they're either downsizing them or just aren't going to have a booth on the floor like Macmillan isn't. I think Mifflin Harcourt isn't either. Which changes the dynamic. For years, I've just gone and walked around because I found that I could meet a lot more people if I just walked around and went to like Random House when they had a huge author there and saw all the booksellers and reviewers are coming to see that.
As they're waiting in line for their free autographed copy.
Hey, do you want an open letter catalog? But now everyone's going to be walking around, so it's going to be like a mass migration of people just kind of roaming, I think. And there's a certain sense that Book Expo is, among people in the industry, that its purpose needs to change and needs to evolve in some way. And I think that this year it's going to come to the fore that either, yes, that's absolutely true, the way that we've been doing things for however many years needs to adapt, or something cool is going to happen, and we're going to say, oh, that's it, that's what Book Expo, that's the point of it, that's exactly what should happen. So I think it's going to be an interesting couple days.
What kind of business do you do when you come to Book Expo?
I mean, it's one of the problems with trying to evaluate the fair and trying to shift it. I've talked to Lance Fensterman, who helps run it, about this very thing, is that in contrast to like the London Book Fair, where it's all about exchanging, buying and selling rights, or Frankfurt, we're sort of scoping out and rights situations, Book Expo is more about buzz and about creating that sort of buzz. So it's hard, it's intangible in a sense, like whether or not you know you did this. My business that I usually do is try and meet with as many booksellers, as many fans of the type of literature that I'm publishing that I can meet with, be it a reviewer, other people in the publishing industry, the booksellers, just people who are excited about international literature and about literature in general, and let them know what's going on. So it is sort of that buzz creating, which is hard to evaluate in a very tangible way of saying, yes, we created X amount of buzz for this book, but it's important to like be around and to meet people and see them face to face and get the information out there.
How many people do you expect to talk to? I mean, are you talking about, do you talk to dozens or quite literally hundreds of people?
I think probably it gets close to the hundreds. Like, I don't think there's a Book Expo that's happened where I didn't lose my voice by the end of the show. Like last year in Los Angeles, I distinctly remember having to like press on my vocal cords to utter words. Like it's not, I talk to nonstop to people, and there's not only just the fair itself, but all the parties afterwards and seeing people there. And oftentimes it's at the parties that have more detailed conversations and more business happens.
So in some ways, it's a giant networking opportunity.
Yeah, essentially, and I think that's what makes it a complicated thing as a fair. People start not going to it, or they don't see the reason to spend all the money on these big, huge booths. It starts to shift. There's also, this year they have the global market focus on the Arab world, and they have a number of panels on Friday, and I'm participating in one of the first panel at 9:30 on publishing Arab literature. And then they also have a cultural thing that's going on at the New York Public Library that evening, and at the Goethe Institute on Friday and Saturday.
Saturday night is the NYPL.
And yeah, Saturday night is NYPL, and Friday night is...
What's your feeling about the international dimensions of Book Expo? Is that, I mean, that's one series of talks in a much larger show that seems to be pretty thin on international publishing and literature. And
the thing that I think is interesting about it doesn't make sense on the surface, because the show has always been American booksellers, American publishers, meet, mingle, exchange information. So to add in like an international, or have this international component, the audience that you naturally have isn't necessarily there. Like, the publishers aren't at Book Expo to buy rights from Arab publishers. So having a special focus the way that you do at Frankfurt or you do at the London Book Fair is not going to work at Book Expo. They also, they have a cultural emphasis, like what you can do at Frankfurt, where you have huge events for the Catalonian book culture, whatever. That makes sense because there's a public interaction, and Book Expo is not for the public. Book Expo is for the trade. The thing I think is cool about it is that they focused this particular year of the Arab literature in the Arab world on the business of books there. So it's not just trying to say, we want to sell you rights, buy our books, translate them, or here's our culture. It's more about, well, this is how we do distribution, this is how we see things, and so there can come to be more of an understanding between the two countries and the two industries, because it is such a different world. Like, the Arab world doesn't function the way that American publishing does. So if there's going to be any kind of growth between the two, or any interactions, there has to be a better understanding on both sides of how each other do business. So I think it's kind of cool that they focus it that way, and that seems to be a different niche than London does, than Frankfurt does.
So Chad, if somebody wants to get in touch with you about either your list or about some of the opportunities of doing business with you, how would they best do that?
The easiest way is we have a couple of, my email address is chad.post@rochester.edu, which is simple. We also have our website, openletterbooks.org, and then 3%, which is a literary resource that has like a weblog, reviews, the Best Translated Book Award, and that's at rochester.edu/3%, spelled out one word.
Thanks a lot, Chad. Have
a
good show.
Oh, definitely. You too. Is that okay?
Great.
It takes a minute to get rolling.